Hello, most of all other values, I appreciate the readiness of company to make some unusual experiments. We are living in the world that is changing really fast, and portable audio is a good example of that. I started making reviews about 10 years ago, and like 8 or 7 years ago, even basic hybrid model was huge innovation. But nowadays it's like the normal thing to see, and probably it's hard to see not the hybrid in-ear monitors. And we've seen the fast development of such areas as Bluetooth receivers and USB dongles and non-standard drivers like electrostats, piezo, and so on. So I really like when companies do some experiments, and today I will talk about one of such unusual experiences. It's, as you can see, it's hybrid in-ear monitors made by company ANEW or ANEW model X-One. ANEW created pretty popular model U1 that unfortunately I missed the opportunity to review, but X1 I got. And what is interesting here, they offer 3 different replaceable crossover models. So basically, instead of tweaking the sound with some filters or some switches, you just replace the whole crossover, and actually it gives results, and it's interesting experience. I will elaborate on this a bit later. Price of these earphones are $330, kind of mid segment probably nowadays, and it's really competitive segment, but let's have a closer look. As you can see, they actively using white color in the design. Earphones are made of white aluminum, probably aluminum, some metal. White cardboard box. On the back side there are technical specifications, 20 ohms of impedance and 108 decibels of sensitivity. So nice figures, not super sensitive but not too tough to drive. And inner box is also white. Manual with different information, including the burn-in. Actually, they offer complicated burn-in schema, but to be honest, I just gave them 48 hours of burn-in without following that schema. Set of tips, replaceable filters and tool to swap them, and Pelican-like case for storage. I'm a fan of these plastic cases. It's not practical for everyday carry, but for storage it's really good option. So let's see the available tips. There are 2 types of tips available. Both are white, but those are semi-transparent and those are opaque, and this one have wider bores and this one have a bit narrower, but still wide bores for both models. And here they are. So also you will have a pouch to carry them on the daily basis, and stock cable. You see they even add some bubble wrap pouches to protect them. Nice cable. So let's talk about the design. Let me untie them. In terms of design, they are really nice. They have classical traditional shape, and they look like made of plastic, but it's not plastic, it's metal. It feels a bit heavy, you can feel the coldness of metal, so nice experience in holding them. They feel more solid than typical plastic ones. Fit is really good for me, but maybe someone can experience issues because spouts have just average lengths, not super protruding ones, but this could be solved with spin fit tips, for example. And sound isolation is nice, about average, maybe a bit higher, but enough for noisy street and for public transport. There is a lip for holding the tips and protective grill, so it's everything that should be in modern good model is done nicely. As you can see, actually tips are really dense fitting, so not deep insertion, but you can change that. Build quality is nice, almost seamless, looks really attractive. And let me show you how to replace the filters here. Here is a special tool to do that. Just move it this way and then gently pull. And you know, replacing the filters here is such a fun experience that I did that few times, because swapping them with this tool is really nice, and it's really great idea. Of course, I don't think that it's reasonable to swap them often. As usual, that sound tweaking options are not to change the sound like every 2 or 3 tracks, it's just to try different options and stick to one that will fit your tastes more. So it's just not for frequently swaps. Cables are major placeable. Here used, actually there is a pretty big vent hole, but it doesn't spoil the sound isolation. So cables are major placeable. Here used MMCX connectors, really tightly fitting, but still they can be disconnected, nicely clipping to place. And here is the cable. It's white, well braided, looks pretty attractive, good splitter with big chin slider, and here it's thicker and nicely braided, and a really big jack, actually one of the biggest 3.5mm jacks that I've seen. So to summarize this part, nice cable, viable set of accessories, good build, nice design, great package, so everything that you can expect for the model in this price range is present and done on a really good level. And about the sound, creators of these earphones recommend really long and extended burn-in. I burned them in for 60 hours, and after about 40 hours they stopped changing the sound, so I will describe what I hear now, then I will proceed with further burn-in. I will burn them in like for another 100 of hours probably. If there will be any change, I will add the pinned comment, but you know, I'm pretty sure that sound is already settled for them. They require finding proper tips, and I use spiral dots with them because they are a bit harder than super soft stock tips. Of course, black spiral dots doesn't look as good as white silicones, but they provide better sound isolation and thus giving me a better sound also. Of course, you can experiment with swapping these filters, if I remember right. Actually, let's try to take a sneak peek in the manual. So blue model is for low frequency gain, black model is medium, low, high, it's probably average, and red model is high frequency gain. So I stick with black ones. I prefer usually the average way. And if you like measurements, guys from Reference Audio Analyzer, the site that I really recommend you, because they really promote the scientific approach to measurements. They measured all versions of these earphones with all filters, and actually they even did the measurements with this crossover models turned upside down. I'm not sure is it recommended or not. I try them, but I'm not sure is it okay. So I'm using them in this regular position. So I will add links to the description too. So really lot of measurements, lot of information, two type of reports for the beginners and for the professionals. So really recommend you this site. And let's have some player on the table and to provide the examples, and let's proceed to the sound description. So in this position of filters with black filters, it's kind of V-shaped signature with accented lows and treble, but it's really technical V-shapeness, so really worth this price tire. You know, usually V-shape signature means that you will lose some mid frequencies, but here mids are really detailed and well balanced, and bass is pretty fast and technical, so no issues with mids. So lows are accented, really deep with good amount of depth, with nice accent of lowest and deepest frequencies. So if you're a fan of impactful bass, it's a good option for you, and it's with balanced model. With bassy one you can get even more low frequencies. I'm not sure can they be considered bass head, because usually, you know, bass head is also not about the amount of low frequencies but also additional weight, while here bass is impactful and fast, but it's not weighty because it's fast and really technical. No, this hum that gives you additional power, but still amount of low frequencies is good, and they are really good in texturing and really nice with acoustic instruments. Bit exaggerate them due to accent, but still sounding pretty pleasant. And electronic music is really nice, at least to my taste. I'm not a big fan of electronic music, but that few bands that I listen to sounding really pleasant. And actually I selected as an example, here it is, Daft Punk, Doing It Right. Nice, pleasant, deep bass and good contrast with the main instruments or with mid frequencies and with vocals, really like solid bass foundation, and on top of it you will get the nice vocal and all that electronic effects. Mids are detailed with a bit shift towards the micro contrast. That's probably why they are not sounding like moved to the background, because thanks to that resolution they are pretty pleasant. Pleasant and present, actually. Present and pleasant. Really similar words, but with different meaning. Nice detalization, a bit peaky for the quality of records as usual, as it's common for the micro contrast focused earphones, but not too much focus on micro contrast, so they're not sounding too monitoring or too dry, just a bit of that contrast, but better records are still required. Nice weight on the vocals and on the instruments, but it should be recorded this way because they're not trying to add some weight, they're not trying to highlight emotions, they're not trying to highlight the macro dynamics. When it's present, when it's not, they won't add that. Imaginary stage is really good, noticeably above average in width and in depth, and actually depth layering is even better than width separation, but still nice and three-dimensional positioning. And as an example for the mid frequencies, well, pretty famous track, actually really famous one, Guns N' Roses, November Rain. Everyone likes this track, and if someone doesn't like it, I think that the whole Inquisition should check that man, because he has no soul. So, fortepiano intro, famous guitars, nice vocals, so everything that we like in pop rock music present here. Catchy tune, great solo, and lot of everything. Track is really saturated with small, nice, good things, and these earphones play this track really nicely. Vocal is really emotional and lively, guitars are piercing when it's necessary, and gentle when it's necessary. Fortepiano sounding pretty realistic. Treble here is accented. It's done, of course, on purpose. It's done to balance the low frequencies. Otherwise, of course, they would sound too bassy, too warm, and actually without that good staging, without that good sense of realism that they show. Treble is accented. To my ears, they are not even close to being sharp or too piercing, because treble here is pretty natural with good extension, not the maximum one, but above the average in terms of extension, and it gives you the good layering and good overtone saturation. And actually, of course, not superb layering of the top of the line earphones, some flagships, but for this price tier it's really good and really nice, especially if you like the V-shaped signature, because accent on treble gives you a more crispness, a more detalization, more contrast, actually more fun in sound, you know. Common ears are leaning towards V-shaped signature. It's normal, because evolutionally our ears were created to be the most sensitive on the mid frequencies, so additional bass and treble makes the representation more normal for us. But of course, it's just one of versions, because actually not one of versions, it's one of preferences, because many people like natural signature despite it sounding mid forward. There is no such thing as the earphones that suit everyone. So nice realistic treble. Of course, they're lacking a bit of weight, because attacks and decays are a bit faster than they should be in the real life, but it's common for the balanced armatures, and it's not an issue. It's just kind of such signature, so they're sounding a bit lean. But they're balancing low frequencies really well and sounding really engaging. And as an example, I got good track to test the treble. It's Hiromi Uehara, my favorite jazz pianist, and her trio project. So I really like this records, because it's the jazz sounding in the rock style, and of course fortepiano taking the lead role here. If you never heard Hiromi, I really recommend you to find some tracks on YouTube and check it out, because it's not only skillful pianist but also really emotional person. You know, that kind of musician that is fun not only listen to but also see. And I could select any single track, but Temptation is just okay. It's a well-recorded fortepiano, so it requires good treble with a lot of overtones, with a lot of presence, and this earphones gives that sounding maybe not at the full potential, but pretty okay, because to listen this track at full potential probably you'll need something like Andromeda, or of course any other top-of-the-line earphones. So to summarize everything once again, V-shaped signature, but really engaging, but at the same time it's technical, so not too fun colored. And in terms of pairing, they don't require tons of driving power, but they will benefit from some technical dub like FIO M11 or iBasso DX160, and up to probably Shanling M6 Pro, FIO's M11 Pro, somewhere in this segment. So basically from the lower mid segment to the upper mid segment, let's say so. Speaking about the comparisons, well, let me recall what we've got in this price range. FLC hybrid models, they are a bit cheaper if I remember right, but I'm not sure there. So FLC is more natural, bit more aggressive, bit more linear, actually not bit more, but just more linear, and totally linear actually. So, and this one is more fun with more low frequencies and more treble. AudioSense T800, they are also really noticeably V-shaped, but there is a slight difference because AudioSense is pure balanced armatures, so they have a lot of bass, but their bass is a bit less weighty than dynamic drivers here. And this one has more weight and a bit more impact, and actually the mids here are a bit more forward and they have a bit less treble comparing with AudioSense, but also of course it depends on filters. And speaking about sound tuning, of course lot of AMR models. Actually, in terms of representation, the closest one to those are Halcyon and Opus Mia that I reviewed recently, but similar presentation, but really different perception, because Opus Mia and Halcyon uses piezo drivers and electrostats, meaning a bit more resolving upper mids and actually a bit more weighted treble, and that gives you a bit different type of tuning. While actually I prefer lows here a bit more, because lows here a bit closer to Ra, and Ra for me is it's not better, I prefer Ra low frequencies a bit more. Dunu Decay 2001, another hybrid model, but Dunu is a bit more highlighting. They are more linear than those, not absolutely linear, but more linear, and they are more highlighting emotion, so it's more the model for those who like emotion boost with sacrificing a bit of naturalness. Maybe, I don't know, iBasso IT04 actually close in terms of general representation, but they are also a bit less V-shaped, but a bit slower, but a bit more massive low frequencies. Maybe there are a lot of other models that I can't recall right now, so just feel free to ask. And one model to mention, Kinera Freya, because someone will definitely ask, because it was a recent review. Kinera Freya is more fun, more V-shaped, less detailed on mids, because Freya is tuned to be warmer on mids with less detailization, while this one is more detailed and more technical. So I really hope that ANEW will get more attention with this model. It's not like, the one model that fits everyone, because it's a bit unusual tuning, like V-shaped, but at the same time technical, not the monitoring model, not the fun model, somewhere balancing in between. And still, it's a really interesting model, offering sound tuning options that really do the trick. Nicely built, maybe fit could be not for everyone, but I easily solved that with spiral dot tips. So thank you for listening, thank you for your attention, and have a nice day.